All well-designed websites in the world have one thing in common, and that thing is well-designed typography. And I can assure you that if you learn some basic typographic skills, your level of work will skyrocket. That's why in this class, I'm going to teach you some basic typography tips that you can use in your work. My name is Tom Biskup, and I'm a designer and art director with almost 15 years of experience. And during that time, I've been working with some really cool clients, did some cool projects, lots of self-initiated ones. And if you like, you can always check them out on my Instagram page at tom.biskup. Okay, ready to learn something new? Let's jump in. Tip number 1 is learn from others. You see, just by acknowledging that typographic design on a website is the crucial part of the final effect of the website gives us a huge advantage. Because next time, when you see a website that really feels good and looks cool, just inspect and be very curious about the typographic design on that website. Because there is a huge chance that this plays a huge role in this final cool effect that you see. Here I see something that I really like. I see the portfolio website of One Studio. They use a pretty small typeface here, unusually small, but it kind of works. It's not very legible, but it's very aesthetic, and I love that effect. I see that paragraph, which is in a larger font, that go pretty well with these small eyebrow headers here. So I want to inspect that. I want to see what sizes are picked here, so this looks as good as it does. So to do that, I'm going to launch a font finder extension in my Google Chrome browser. It's free to use and easy to install. I can then select the text that I want to inspect, and then boom, a pop-up that tells me all the values, all the parameters that are set for this type style. And for example, this type style has 28 pixels size. So 28 is the large one and the small one is 10 pixels tall. So now I learned something cool. 28 goes pretty well with 10 pixels. It creates a bold, dramatic hierarchy in the design, and I can experiment with this combination of sizes in my design in the future. So analyzing cool websites, looking at their typography and comparing different sizes together and inspecting them and acknowledging what sizes are they and how they play together is a crucial part of analyzing good website that you see and that inspires you. Tip number 2 is set your type right. And let me show you what I mean in this quick exercise. Jumping into Figma, I have this very simple section of the website, which is 1440 wide, and it has 2 layers of text, one being 2 paragraphs put together and one being a heading. So these are the basic styles for typefaces that Figma gave me, and I don't want to sell for that. I want something better. So let me duplicate this layout and show you what I mean. So first I want to set some hierarchy between a heading and the paragraph text. So I'm going to set the paragraph text to 16 pixels. And I'm going to set the heading size to something bigger, maybe 24 or 28 or even 32. Okay, I think that works for now. Second of all, I want to make this column tighter. It's too wide right now, containing too many words in each line of text. So I will pick these 2 layers and I will make them narrower, something like that, maybe 420 pixels. Yeah, that looks right. Now I want to play with letter spacing. For headings, I want to reduce the letter spacing so the heading looks more compact and better in the result. -4% looks pretty good in this situation, in my opinion. For the paragraph, for the body text, I'm going to enlarge this value of letter spacing by 1%. So text has better readability. I think I'm going to make this heading even bigger, so the contrast between the heading and the body size is stronger, 48 maybe. Yeah, that looks really, really cool. And now I see another problem. The line height, which is the spacing between lines of text, doesn't work pretty well, neither for the heading nor for the body text. So for the heading, I'm gonna change the auto value here for a percentage number. Let's start with 120%, which is probably the default for auto. And now I'm going to make it smaller, 110, 100, maybe 105. Yeah, that looks pretty dope. Maybe 110 is pretty good. And as you can see, the lines got further from each other, and that creates this breathing between the lines, which I really, really like. Now, to put the heading in the spotlight even more, I'm going to change the weight of the typeface from regular to semi-bold, let's say. Yeah, it looks pretty dope. Next, I'm going to take care of this spacing here. This spacing has been created using double enter on the keyboard, which is not a best practice. So I'll hit enter one time to distinguish different paragraphs. And now in the text settings, I'm going to change the paragraph spacing feature here. So I have more control over this spacing here. I'm going to set it to, let's say, 16 pixels, maybe 20. Yeah, 20 is fine. Next, I can change the body text color from 100% black, so to lower contrast between the background and the foreground, I'm going to make it dark gray. So the difference might not be recognizable, but it really improves the reading experience when the contrast between the background and the text that you read is lowered. And to lower the contrast even more, I will play with the color of the background, changing it from 100% white to something more organic, maybe some beigey gray. Let's change it like, yeah, something bright and fresh. Very nice. And as you can see, with this simple tweaks, we got from this here to this. The one on the left is really a nightmare to read for the user. The lines are too wide, making the reading really difficult. The paragraphs on the right side are pretty narrow, so they look really fit and easy to read. The hierarchy between the heading and the body text makes the whole experience easier to digest. So I hope now you know that in typography, devil is in the details, and you have to take care of lots of different values here and there to just make that text really shine. Tip number 3, keep it simple. Many beginners try to make their text look interesting. And to do that, they are picking too many typefaces, too many variants, too many weights, too many colors, and they easily achieve the opposite. Here you can see what I mean. Here I chose another font, additional colors, and it's a mess, right? It's hard to read, and although it might look somehow interesting, it's a nightmare to digest for the user. So if you're new to typography, just pick one typeface with 3 weight variants. For example, here I have bold, medium, and light. And that's it. That's all you need for starters. When you encounter good web design, you can always see that there are different type sizes combined together, and they create this complex system that's based on many different elements that really go well with each other. So the natural question that arises here is, how do we choose these sizes that go so well together and that create this really nice looking harmony? You have to set something that's called a type scale, which is a mathematical equation that stands behind all of your type sizes in your design. To do that, you can use a tool like typescale.com, which is also free to use. Here you can set your body size, which should be set to 16 or 18 pixels. Let's keep it 16. Here we can change the value to pixels because we don't want them in rems. And here is the mathematical equation behind the scaling rules of the text. And the smaller this value is, the less difference between different styles. The larger it gets, the more difference between each style. So here you can set a typographic rule, the mathematical rule behind your typography, and it's really cool that you can then see it in practical use on this website mockup. So when you're happy with what you see here in this preview, you can then see what type sizes have been created by this mathematical rule. So for this system, we would go with rounded values of 16, 19, 23, 27, 33, and so on and so on. And I can assure you that if you create a set of size values based on a system like that, it will look much better, much better than the randomly picked sizes when you use your intuition to do that. Design is about communication. You cannot communicate anything with some gibberish text in a language that doesn't exist. What your text means is equally important to how it looks. And presenting to your client projects that have lorem ipsum in them, you do harm to you and your client. Because it's impossible for the client to judge your project by just looking at some text that doesn't mean anything. Because meaning is the integral part of the design. And you see an example here where I use lorem ipsum side by side with some text that means something. If we see lorem ipsum and we cannot understand what does it mean, we treat that as something fake, like a mock-up, like a template that should be filled with content, but it's not filled with content. And you really have no excuses when it comes to using lorem ipsum, especially in the age of ChatGPT, which is a brilliant tool for creating a placeholder text for your projects. By the way, the text content for this exercise has been generated by GPT. There are some font foundries that have some sort of a cult status, and you have to follow them and you have to know what font they produced and how do they look. Here are some really cool font foundries to get you started. The first one is Dynamo. Second one is Grilly Type. Then we have Optimo, we have Chic Toika, we have Klim Type Foundry, Pangram, and Tight Type. Follow these guys on Instagram and keep yourself informed about what they release and what's the new hyped font by each of them. There are also really cool places for inspiration when it comes to typography on the internet. So let me show you a classic website for type inspiration, which is Typewolf. Here you have a nice selection of sites that use good typography with all the typefaces used in this design listed here, and each of these typefaces have a nice description with a link to the font foundry that released them. It's really something. There are also few really good Instagram profiles that selects the best typography from all over the world. One of my favorites is Contemporary Type. Playing with the best quality typefaces in your designs can make a really large difference in your perception of how typography influences the design. So I always encourage my students to play with the best fonts available on the market. Not everybody knows this, but you can actually download a non-commercial trial versions of the best fonts from the best type foundries website. Let's take Dynamo, for example, where you can quickly and easily just click trial fonts and then select all typefaces, give them your email, and just like that, you are ready to go with the non-commercial versions of all their fonts. And of course, in a trial version, the set of glyphs will be limited, but still, you'll have the experience of working with some really nice fonts and you'll see how they influence your design. Congrats on finishing our today's class. My next class will be about the basics of responsive design in web. So if you're into it, please subscribe at DigitalDesigner.so and we'll keep you informed about our next free classes in this series. And since you watched this video, I assume that you are an aspiring designer or you're trying to make your way in the design industry. So just to let you know, right now I'm in the middle of preparing a digital design course, which will take you through the whole process of website design and will cover topics such as art direction, interface design, and prototyping, just to name a few. This course will be published by Design Practice and it will have a nice community around it, so I think it might be pretty interesting. If you're into it, just make sure you subscribe to a newsletter at DigitalDesigner.so and we'll keep you informed about our future releases. That's it for today's guys. Thank you so much and see you in a few days in my next class.